Officer, on Tuesday, Humza Yousaf tried to convince the country that he represented a fresh start. 16 years of command and control, financial mismanagement and a complete lack of transparency. This isn't just how they governed their party, it's how they govern the country. Just one example, the ongoing ferry crisis. £200 million over budget with no ferries in sight. And last week I was in the Western Isles and I heard directly from people about the consequences of this failure. Cancelled ferries, meaning missed cancer appointments, lack of supplies coming in, produce not getting out, and businesses going to the wall. In 2017, the then SNP Minister for Transport and the Islands said resolving the Western Isles ferry crisis was a priority. 6 years on, they're still waiting, and it's got worse. So can I ask the First Minister, who was that incompetent Transport Minister, and where are they now?
First Minister.
Can I say that I of course recognise the challenges that our ferry services, those who rely on our ferry services at island communities, have suffered in the last few weeks, particularly given the Easter tourism season. But let me also speak very clearly to those island communities that we understand not just their frustration, but we are taking action to ensure that we bolster the ferry network services. That's why this government has bought and deployed an additional vessel in the MV Loch Freesa. That's why we chartered the MV Arrow to provide additional resilience and capacity. That's why we commissioned 2 new vessels for Isla. That's why we commissioned 2 new vessels for the Little Minch routes. That's why we progressed key investments in ports and harbours. That's why we confirmed additional revenue funding for the operation of local authority ferry services. And that's why, of course, we are looking forward to the MV Alfred and provided additional funding to CalMac for the MV Alfred to provide additional resilience, not just for the next few weeks, but for the next 9 months. So this is, of course, a very serious matter raised by Anna Sarwar, but we are a government that is taking action to ensure that we have resilience on our ferries network.
Anna Sarwar.
Officer, that was the great example of what's become typical of this leadership in the last 3 weeks. Comical Ali, everything's fine while the house burns down behind us. Island communities will not believe those excuses from the Minister. The First Minister and this government are totally out of touch. 6 years ago, Humza Yousaf, as Transport Minister, made a promise to fix this, but this SNP government has failed to get a grip, and its financial mismanagement has cost us hundreds of millions of pounds. But it's also cost people on the islands dearly too. The impact on the local economy has been devastating. One report has estimated that the loss of the Loch Boysdale to Mallaig ferry alone costs nearly £50,000 a day. That's almost double the average annual salary on the islands. As one business put it, no ferry means no income, no jobs, no people. And the businesses in Uist have asked the Scottish Government to compensate them for their losses. Last year, Transport Scotland took millions of pounds in fines from CalMac because of the lack of services. So will the First Minister commit to compensating islanders and, at the very least, passed on the fines that the government have collected from CalMac to the people affected by this crisis?
First Minister.
Can I say I'll look at any proposals that are suggested by anybody across this chamber, including the one that Anna Sarwar just mentioned there. But look, I completely accept and am unequivocal in saying that the government understands and regrets any delays and disruptions that have impacted our island communities. What doesn't help our island communities is sound bites, and really easy sound bites from Anna Sarwar, not in any attempt to provide any solutions, but silly personal attacks around Comical Ali. That's not going to help those in our island communities one single bit. What will help our island communities, of course, is delivering six new major vessels. 6 new major vessels to serve Scotland's ferry network by 2026. That's a priority for this government. And let's look at the facts, because of course there has been disruption. I'm not denying that at all. But in 2022, there were 170,000 scheduled sailings across the Chief's network, and around 6.6% of those were cancelled. Over half of those were cancelled due to weather-related issues, and around 1.1% of the total scheduled sailings were due to technical issues. So the vast majority of scheduled sailings do take place when they are meant to. The ferry service network we should bolster, we will bolster in terms of its resilience, and that's why I look forward to the charter of the MV Alfred coming on board in the coming days. So what I will say to Anna Sarwar, I will end where I started. Any sensible suggestions from across the opposition, from across this chamber, will be listened to by this government.
Anna Sarwar.
The harsh reality is the island communities just don't believe them. Island communities feel completely let down, and they've heard these excuses for years, and they can't wait more years of government failure. This is impacting the lives of islanders right now. Businesses are failing right now. Millions of pounds are being lost right now. Exports are stuck on the islands right now, and people need support right now, and that's why they need that compensation scheme. But, Presiding Officer, this is no fresh start. Humza Yousaf has served in government for over a decade. A failed transport minister with hundreds of millions of pounds wasted on ferries that never sailed. A failed Justice Secretary with millions of pounds wasted on botched prosecutions and court delays. A failed Health Secretary with over £300 million wasted on delayed discharge while people wait to get life-saving treatment. And just 3 weeks in, a failed First Minister, bogged down in scandal, unable to lead and completely out of touch with the priorities of the people of Scotland. So can I ask the acting SNP Treasurer, why should Scots keep paying the price for SNP failure?
First Minister.
Can I say once again to Anna Sarwar, we are acting now. That's why the MV Alfred, an additional vessel which we have helped to fund CalMac for, is coming on board in the next few days. So that is tangible action which will make a difference to our ferry networks right here and right now. And he says that the people of Scotland don't trust us. He was in the Western Isles. Can I remind him the Western Isles has an SNP MP and an SNP MSP. So the people of the Western Isles absolutely do trust us.
Members, we need to hear the First Minister respond. First Minister.
That we haven't been getting on with the job. Well, I'm afraid that people in Scotland disagree with him. When I stood here on Tuesday and announced and articulated our policy perspective, I'm delighted it got support from the SCVO. It got support in some of the policies I announced, got support from Dr Liz Cameron, the Chief Executive of the Scottish Chambers of Commerce, from Transport Scotland, Transform Scotland, forgive me, in relation to the pilot, in the terms of the pilot for peak rail fares being abolished, from the Scottish Whisky Association, from the Chartered Institute of Housing in Scotland, from the Scottish Empty Homes Partnership, from Crisis Scotland, from Reform Scotland, from the Poverty Alliance, from Stop Climate Chaos, from Parkinson's UK. So this is a time for new leadership, of course, which I'm delighted to bring to this government, a time for a fresh start. The people of Scotland recognise that. Maybe it's time Scottish Labour should recognise that too.